We have some more big news from the NHL waiver wire, some more prospects have signed contracts, and we have a couple of players in trouble with NHL player safety. We'll discuss the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned today, we have a variety of news topics to cover. Let's start with the news from NHL player safety. There was a couple of incidents last night that have led for them to review. One resulted in a fine. The other one looks like it could very well be a suspension. First up, Colorado Avalanche star forward Nathan Mackinnon's been fined a whopping $5,000, which I know seems like peanuts, as we talked about with McDavid the other day. But unfortunately, that is the maximum they're allowed to fine based on the agreements here in the collective bargaining agreement. He got that for basically throwing a helmet. He ended up in a little bit of a skirmish, I guess you could say, with Coyotes forward Connor Garland. Garland's helmet came off, and he kind of whipped it at him, I guess. He didn't seem to throw it too hard, but if you look at it from McKinnon's standpoint, like if you watch him throw it, it doesn't look that bad, but then you look at Garland's reaction, it's really mesmerizing to kind of look at from both sides. It looks really odd, but basically he just threw his helmet at him, so he's been fined for unsportsmanlike conduct. So I have no problem with that. Obviously, when a piece of equipment like a helmet, which could be used, if you got him in the face with that or something, that could have resulted in some injury. So I have no problem with McKinnon getting a fine. But as we talked about with McDavid the other day, I do think the amount that they're allowed to fine those players are ridiculous, and they need to change that as part of the next CBA or have some kind of amendment or something. I don't know what they got to do, but the amounts in there are just absolutely ludicrous. I think maybe it should be a percentage of the player's salary or something, but, has to be something that's got to give there, because that's just absolutely peanuts for most of these players. Now, the other player that's been looked at here by player safety is Vegas Golden Knights forward Chandler Stevenson. Now, this is likely going to result in a suspension. He's having a hearing today, so we will likely know later on this afternoon or evening. I would imagine by the time my next video goes up later, we'll likely know the outcome. I'm doubtful that we'll have the results by the time this video makes it to YouTube. If it is, though, check the pinned comment down below. I'll update the status if there is news. Otherwise, it'll be discussed in the next video. Unfortunately, there was a bad hit from Stephenson on Kings defenseman Tobias Bjornfoot. Got him up high with an elbow. So it's a combination of elbow and interference is what they're calling the hearing. I would imagine he will be suspended. I don't believe Stephenson has any priors, so I would think it's likely 1 or 2 games, nothing too significant. But certainly a bad hit there that they're taking a look at, and he'll miss some time for it. We have some more interesting names on the NHL waiver wire. Hard to say if we have any claims or not. The waiver wire has been a whole unique, different kind of beast this year, as we've talked about recently. Seen some pretty decent players. I mean, obviously some of these decent players are not playing the best lately, obviously, but some interesting names to say the least going through waivers. Today we have New Jersey Devils forward Nikita Gusev. Gusev is a pending unrestricted free agent. Obviously he came over from Russia, signed for a couple of years with New Jersey. Last year he actually put up some decent numbers. He put up, I think it was 44 points in 60 games. He got to a slow start, but bounced back later on and kind of got adjusted and was doing better. But this year has not been kind to Gusev. The offensive numbers have dropped off significantly. Hard to say what his future holds with New Jersey. I would think that if the numbers don't pick up, that he would definitely, most likely have to walk and find employment elsewhere. But, he had some pretty strong years in the KHL, came over, but as we've seen, not every player translates well. He's making $4.5 million, so even though there could be teams with interest, I do think it's probably doubtful. I mean, some teams might be tempted to take a chance on him where he's a pending UFA, but I think that would be more likely if New Jersey wants to trade him with 50% salary retained. That would probably be a much more likely outcome. So I would not be surprised if he clears waivers and ends up getting traded. Obviously, like I said, if he's cleared waivers, he can go to the taxi squad for the next 30 days without having to go through waivers again, or when he plays 10 NHL games. So it gives the acquiring team some flexibility as well to move him around on their roster. So I wouldn't be surprised if something like that takes place, or he could stay in New Jersey. Hard to say. We also have forward Matt Luff of the LA Kings on waivers today as well. The 23-year-old's making $700,000. He's a pending restricted free agent. Has 1 goal on the season, is not playing a ton for LA. Obviously, they picked up some other guys recently. They're probably trying to create more of a roster spot. Obviously, they got Brendan Lemieux, Christian Rolando. Like, they made some other deals lately. They have lots of young players as well. So certainly, just looking for some roster flexibility. But he's a guy with a a 1-year deal here. $700K would be more likely to be picked up, especially where he's restricted. But again, difficult to say. I don't see there being a ton of interest in Luff, but you never know. Teams looking for extra added depth. And we also have Edmonton Oilers forward Tyler Ennis, also on waivers. Of course, Ennis has been around the league for a long time, in his early 30s now. He's had a lot of short-term contracts in recent years, but at times has proven to be valuable. I would imagine that this is more likely to create a roster spot for a potentially returning James Neal, Evan Bouchard. Obviously, I think the Oilers would probably prefer to hang on to Ennis. I mean, he's making $1 million even, so that's not a bad contract for a depth player. He has been okay at times as well, so we'll see. But Ennis is another guy, could get picked up because he's on a short-term deal, not a lot of money, and those are the ones that are more likely to go instead of these bigger money contracts, $4, $5, $6 million. Teams just don't have that capacity without something going out or the team retaining salary or something else. So we'll see what happens and update you all on noon Eastern time tomorrow if any of these players are indeed claimed or if they do clear. Now, as I mentioned as well, we also have some more prospects signing contracts and a couple of big names from the previous first-round drafts here in the last couple of years, including 2018 first-rounder Jacob Bernard Docker signing with the Ottawa Senators, leaving school after 3 years at the University of North Dakota, where he wore an A for alternate captain last year. Has also been part of Team Canada at the World Juniors. Certainly a right-shot defenseman that comes with a lot of potential. So he was their second of 2 first-round picks in the 2018 NHL draft after taking Brady Tkachuk, number 4 overall, a player that they've been watching closely. They got many other prospects there at UND that they're waiting to see if they want to sign as well. Invitations have been offered to guys like Shane Pinto, Jake Sanderson. Tyler Clevin likely stays for another year, for sure, maybe 2. But still, Bernard Docker very well could be the ideal long-term partner for Thomas Chabot on the right side. I mean, he's a bit of a stabilizer that can kind of, be more of the stay-at-home guy who can chip in a little bit offensively while Chabot's more of the rover. Hard to say if he gets paired with him longer term, but that's how he's projected to be. He could be a solid top 4 guy who could play with a guy like Chabot and complement him very, very well. And we've also seen the Philadelphia Flyers sign 2019 first-rounder defenseman Cam York, who leaves the University of Michigan after a couple of seasons there. Of course, he also played in the World Juniors this past year, was the captain for Team USA, helped leading them to the gold medal. In the case of Cam York as well as Bernard Docker, they are both going straight to their NHL team. So Bernard Donker's heading straight to Ottawa, supposed to arrive either tonight or tomorrow, and then we'll do his 7 days and then be able to join the team, probably get a couple of practices in and then be able to play a few games. And Cam York's doing the same thing here with the Philadelphia Flyers. Both will be given opportunity to play NHL games this season. The University of North Dakota also loses another player who they were going to lose anyways because he's played for 4 years. That's Jordan Kawaguchi, 23-year-old center iceman, native of Abbotsford, British Columbia, signs with the Dallas Stars on his entry-level deal. The center Iceman's put up over a point per game numbers for the past couple of years and was certainly getting a lot of attention. I know there was some wondering if he'd get attention from his hometown team, the Vancouver Canucks, but there didn't seem to be really any interest in that regard. But he goes to the Dallas Stars on an entry-level deal. And the Chicago Blackhawks have signed defenseman Isaac Phillips, who was a prospect from the 2020 NHL draft, a 5th rounder at that. So for him to sign his ELC so quickly is certainly not something you see that's very common. But of course, he's from the OHL, so obviously the OHL has not resumed play yet. So a lot of those players have been allowed on a temporary basis to play in the American Hockey League. So the Hawks have had a first-hand chance to see him play in Rockford at the AHL level. So they've seen him play pro hockey, obviously impressed enough just after being drafted that they felt comfortable signing him to his 3-year entry-level deal. So we'll see the OHL here. Hopefully we'll get back to playing a shortened season. And then he'll have to return once they go, but obviously at least he had a chance to play professionally for a little while here and impress the Hawks to get his contract in place. So that is all your news and notes here for now, so stay tuned. There will be another video later today talking about the rest of the latest news and any NHL trade rumors we come across leading into the deadline. We're now 11 days away from the trade deadline where we could see a lot of activity for teams getting ready for their playoff run. So let me know your thoughts on this news down below in the comments and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.